forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. Today's block is called Scrappy Diamonds, and it finishes at 12 inches. Here is the diagram, and these are half rectangle triangles or split rectangles. There are 4 sets of these, meaning this is a set, a left and a right side is a set, and there are 4 sets per block. Here is one way you can set these. Here's another setting where they're alternating vertical and horizontal placement, and we have some more samples on page 2, and we'll get to those. Here are the patches, or the cutting instructions, and these instructions that I'm going to give you will make 2 blocks. So this is 1 block, and it will make 2 of these. This block was designed and presented with permission from Christy Cleverly of Bonjour Quilts. And you can scan or click on this code and you can see her tutorial on this. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to cut these and piece these. The half rectangle triangles are, I've listed them as A and A reversed, that's AR. For rotary cutting, you'll cut rectangles this size, and these are oversized cutting, and they'll be trimmed down later. So you'll cut the rectangles 8 inches by 4 inches. We'll stack them with the wrong sides together and then cut this angle in this direction. That way you'll get your left and your right pieces. For the fabrics, we need 2 rectangles from each of the 4 different fabrics. And I tried to match up a light and a dark fabric, sort of like. And then here are the, you'll need 8 rectangles for the background fabric. In my blocks, I use 2 different background fabrics. This section here talks about if you're using the Tri-Rex tool or if you're using any kind of rectangle tool, you'll use the 6.5 inch mark on the ruler. For each of the accent fabrics, we'll cut a strip 6.5 inches by 10 inches, fold the strip wrong sides together, and cut 2 sets. When I say 2 sets, one is a left and one is a right. For the background fabric, you'll cut a little bit longer strip, place the strips wrong sides together, and cut 4 sets. On this side are the AccuQuilt instructions. Here are the 2 dies you can use to cut these with AccuQuilt. For each of the accent fabrics, we'll cut 1 strip 7 inches by 10 inches, fold it wrong sides together, and cut 2 sets. For the background fabric, we'll cut a slightly longer strip, place the strips wrong, fold the strips wrong side together, and cut 4 sets. Now patch B is a 1 inch finished square. We're going to use this to do stitch and flip or the folded corner clipper, and that's what makes these little triangles down here. We'll need 4 patches of each of these fabrics, and then I tried to coordinate those fabrics with these fabrics up here. Here are the AccuQuilt dies that will cut this shape. I wanted to show you some of the other settings before we got started. This is, if you have a block like this, and these are just set block to block, and they're all going in this vertical position like this. And then this is the layout if they're alternating vertical and horizontal positions. This is another one. I'm going to demonstrate this better once we are piecing our block. But you'll take half of these and then alternate them, so you'll have this kind of zigzag effect in between them. And this one, instead of sewing them together like this, we sew the opposite sides. And this is what it looks like with 4 blocks, and this is what it looks like for an entire quilt. Here are all my pieces cut out for 2 blocks, and that's per the instructions on your sheet. Now stay tuned for a tutorial that shows you 3 ways to piece these half rectangle triangles. Half rectangle triangles have a left side and a right side. I have placed these fabrics right sides up and cut this half rectangle triangle. I'm going to cut another one just so we'll have 2. take these apart, we see that they're facing the same direction. And when you put these together, this is what they look like. So these were cut right sides up. We take this piece and we cut it with the right sides down. Let's do that and we'll see what it looks like. And we turn these over and you'll see they face the other direction. Or if we turn them this way, they face in this direction. So there's a left and a right side. And these go together like this. They look the same how they are now, but they're very different. Once you sew them together, they have that orientation that they're either left or right facing. So you need to be mindful of that when you're doing your cutting. The first method we're going to use to make the half rectangle triangles is to cut rectangles that are slightly oversized, and we'll sew them together and then trim them down to the correct size. For this example, we'll be making 8 half rectangle triangles. 4 will be left facing and 4 will be right facing. I've cut my rectangles 3 inches by 6 inches, and I want a 2-inch by 4-inch finished half rectangle triangle. I have 2 background rectangles and 2 accent rectangles in this stack, and the same here. So we have 8 rectangles all together. I'm going to take this stack and turn it over so the right sides are facing down, and this has the right sides facing up. I'll take my ruler and cut a diagonal line. And since we have half of the fabrics facing up and half facing down, it really doesn't matter which angle you use. And I cut all of these along the diagonal. And let's open them up and see what we have. These are like this. These are all the right sides, I'll call these, and now these are the left sides. 2 of those, and then we should have the same number in this stack. Now all these are facing right sides up now. Okay. We'll take these 2 stacks and sew them together like this, and these 2 like that. And so you see that they're facing in different directions. On the light fabric, we're going to turn them over, and on this long angle, this diagonal angle, we're going to mark our 1/4 inch seam allowance. We don't need to mark the entire line, just need to mark the ends. I'm taking a ruler that has a 1/4 inch line. Here it's a dashed line, and I'll take that 1/4 inch and lay it just at the bottom of this fabric. Reason I'm doing that is when I mark with my pencil this 1/4 inch line here and here, it will give me closer to a 1/4 inch. If I move this up any, and you can see the fabric from underneath this line, then my 1/4 inch line will be more than a 1/4 inch. So place it at the bottom, and we'll take a pencil and just mark on these 2 sides. That's really all you need to mark is the ends. And these are what we want to sew together. This is my marked one. Turn this over. Here's our marked line on this side. I want to line up the edge of the fabric here, and then where this line reaches the edge of the fabric, I want that to be the edge of this fabric underneath. So that point points to where the 2 fabrics intersect at the line, or at the bottom. And I'll just put a little pin in here right now, and then we'll move this up and line this up. We want to match this edge here. This doesn't come out as close to the edge, but for this one, since we've oversized the cuts, we're just going to start here and stitch 1/4 of an inch all the way down. Here we have our piece stitched, and you see the stitching comes right here at this angle where the two fabrics meet at the edge of the fabric. And then this is just stitched off 1/4 of an inch. Now we'll press the seams open. The seams have been pressed open, and I'm not going to cut off these nubs right now. Take a piece of freezer paper, and it's cut 2 inches by 4 inches, which is the finished size that I want. I'm going to place it on the front side of this piece, matching this corner of the freezer paper with the seam line, and this corner of the freezer paper with the seam line. So we just move it around until all the diagonals match, and you want to make sure you have at least 1/4 of an inch all the way around this freezer paper. Then go to the iron and press it. Give it a quick press and it'll stick to the fabric. Now the freezer paper is pressed onto the fabric. We'll take a ruler with 1/4 inch markings on it and lay the edge. The 1/4 inch marking lines in this case are the dashed lines here and here. Place the dashed lines right on the freezer paper. So line up the dashed lines here with the freezer paper edges. And then you'll trim. Trim these two sides. And you'll see the freezer paper now has 1/4 of an inch seam allowance around these two sides. Flip it over and do the same thing on this other side. And then take the freezer paper off. On these edges here, the seam line doesn't go into the corner because that's what you need when you're piecing these two other patches. Your 1/4 of an inch will end up right here on this seam line, so you'll have your seams starting and ending right in the corner in the intersections of those two pieces. You can reuse this freezer paper many times. Just don't press it for a long time. It just needs a quick little dab and it holds it on long enough for you to trim it. The second method for piecing half rectangle triangles is to use a rectangle ruler. In this case, I'm using the Rex tool, which is part of the Tri-Rex ruler set. Any ruler that's designed for split rectangles or for half rectangle triangles you can use with this method. I have my 2 pieces of fabric, and again you have to be mindful of which way the fabrics are going. Are you cutting them with right sides up or wrong sides up? You just place the ruler. In this case we're placing it on the 4.5 inch mark of this strip, and we'll cut. On these special rulers, you will have a little notch that needs to be cut out. It's very tiny, but that's what it looks like. That notch will come in handy when we're piecing them together. To piece these, you're going to piece like this, flip this over, and let's look at the notch we just cut. This is the notch we cut off. So you match this notch with the bottom edge of this fabric, and these edges of the fabrics you'll match. So you have it matched here and here. And then move this over and line up the rest of this. You'll start and just stitch 1/4 of an inch. Here is the stitching. It's stitched 1/4 of an inch. And as long as you're lined up, everything will come out fine. So I'm going to go press this open and show you what it looks like. Here it is pressed open. You'll notice here there's a little notch, and that's perfectly fine. This is where when you have your 1/4 inch seam allowance, it will be taken in, and then your 1/4 inch here, and your seam line will end up right in the corner when you sew the 2 pieces together. Cut off this nub. And that's what it looks like. And here's the top part, the same way. Go ahead and cut off that nub, and then you're finished. The third method for making half rectangle triangles is to use the AccuQuilt cutting system. In the cube companion angles, you'll have the side pieces, and they're always shape 14 that will do these. These are usually used for the triangle and square. These are the sides. And they do make some other sizes that you can buy separate dies. So one thing you have to remember for this AccuQuilt die, it has the two sides and they will be facing the same way once you cut them. So if we wanted to make two of these in one direction and two of these in the other direction, this is what we'll need. We'll put these on the die right sides up, and we'll put these on the die right sides down. And then I'll go cut these and show you what they look like. I've cut them, and now I'll take off this excess pieces here, and we'll take the pieces off. So we have a stack of this and a stack of that. These are wrong sides up. So now we'll put them right sides up, and then these are the right sides up that were cut. So these are the sets you get. You'll have two facing in left and two facing right. And now to piece these, they'll go together like this. So we'll flip this over and match this part down here. You want to match this long edge and then this cut off edge here. Just line it up even here and even here. And then I always put my finger on it and slide it up, finish lining up this edge, and then this lines up here a little bit. And you'll stitch 1/4 inch all the way down. Here is the stitching. See, these match here and up here. And then here's what it looks like once it's pressed. These are your little extra edges on the side that will be taken up in the seam allowance, and over here too, like this. And with the AccuQuilt, there are no nubs to cut off. So those are the 3 ways you can make half rectangle triangles. Now you should have a total of 16 of these half rectangle triangles, 2 sets of each fabric. Now we're going to take the 1.5 inch squares that coordinate with your fabric and place them in the corner like this. This one will be placed in this corner. And if you're using stitch and flip, you'll draw your line here and stitch on the line and trim it off. If you're using the folded corner clipper, you'll clip it off. Just be sure the cut is going in the right direction. So I'll stitch this one and show you what it looks like. And here's what they look like after they've been stitched. They'll go together like this. If you're not familiar with the stitch and flip method or with the folded corner clipper, stay tuned for a short tutorial to show you how. If you know what you're doing, then just fast forward through that section and we'll get to the part where we're putting all of these pieces together. On the back of the accent fabrics, you're going to draw a diagonal line. Place this right sides together on the background. But if you can see, I've got my stitching just to the right side of that line. And this area here, the outside corner, we're going to cut off. You can use scissors or you can use your rotary cutter, and you're going to cut off this little right corner. And then you're going to flip it up like this and press it just like this. Because you stitched just to the right side of that line, you have a nice even edge on these 2 sides, and that's what you want. This is the folded corner clipper ruler. It's from Creative Grids. So what this folded corner clipper does is it takes out the marking part and the stitching on the line part. And those are the parts that where if there are going to be errors, it's probably going to be there. Either the line is not marked correctly or it's not sewn on correctly. So this corner clipper ruler takes all that out of there and makes it much more accurate and faster to get your things done. We place our square in the corner and we line up our 3 points on the ruler, the top, the side, and then this side here, and cut. After you cut off the corner, you'll stitch 1/4 inch like this, and then press the seam open, and it will look like this. Now it's decision time. How do you want to put these together? You can choose to do them like this, where they all 4 parts of the diamond are the same. You can choose to do them alternating like I did. Or you can make them totally scrappy. Let's see what we have here. Like that. I kind of like the totally scrappy thing. So I'm going to do that. I'll lay those out and let's put these together. That, and then we'll have another block that's totally scrappy with these pieces. Now the other thing you can do if you wanted to piece these together, and if you wanted to piece these together like this, these 4 pieces and these 2 pieces like this, you could alternate them so they would, when you alternate them, they will be like this, and you piece them in vertical rows. Your next row down here would be like this. So at the top and the bottom, it would be 1/2 of a diamond, and then these would be like this. So this is how your diamonds would alternate. You'd have this, a full diamond, and then you'd have a 1/2 diamond on the top and bottom. And these would be your vertical rows. I think for these that I'm going to sew, I will do opposites like this. Let's see, this will go here. Got all my things mixed up. And then I need one of these. So I'm going to make my block to look like this. I'll sew these together and show you the 2 finished blocks. When you sew these together, you'll want to stack these seams. So this seam and this seam you'll stack, and these 2 seams you will stack. And here's what I mean by that. If we flip them over like we're getting ready to sew, if we can feel with our fingers that the seams are stacked, but you can check by lifting this up, pulling it back, and you'll see these seam lines just follow a straight line. So when you stitch them, the points will match. And do the same thing for this. You can see these 2 seams you want to stack, and if you pull this back, you'll see that they stack. And here's what it looks like from the front. The points meet at the same place, here and also here. And there's your 1/4 inch. Before we see the blocks, I want to give you my video recommendation for today. It's called Tossed Triangles. You can use your big chunks of fabric, your scrap fabrics, and this takes about 1/2 of a fat quarter. So if you have parts of a fat quarter, that would probably go a long way in this quilt. So there's a link in the description below the video, and there's a link right now. So I hope you enjoy it. And here are the blocks. We have 2 blocks today, and they're kind of opposite of each other. You can put them like this, block to block. You can do them like this, or however you like. Here's the backs, and there's the blocks. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.